Oh, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes, and I am welcoming you to another episode where we are going to be talking about professional wrestling for a few hours here on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes, or on your favorite podcast application, wherever it is you are. Thank you for allowing me into your ear holes once again this week. Sincerely, truly appreciate it. Also would be very appreciative of a like here on YouTube or a subscription. You know, those things would be great. Or a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, or a 5-star rating on Spotify, or some follows there as well, or wherever you decide to listen to me. You know, if you show a little love like that, it does help grow the podcast, and I appreciate it tremendously. You know, it's the season of giving. Give me a subscription. How about that? So we got a big packed show for today. I hope you're excited about it. Final Battle, the Ring of Honor pay-per-view from just a couple of days ago. I reviewed it, and so you'll be getting that in a little bit. We're going to be talking about the TNA deal. We'll be talking about whether ESPN is happy with WWE. We're also going to be talking about that eternal battle between the 5-star match or the stories. Which one is better? We're going to get into that courtesy of Matt Hardy this week. But before we get into all of that, we are going to start with a recap of where we're at right now in the Continental Classic, AEW's big annual tournament. So we're going to break down everything that happened right up until before. That's not a sentence, but you know what I mean. The December 10th edition of AEW Dynamite. My brain is fritzing. Thank you very much for being here. Let's get right to it. Why don't we start with the Continental Classic? Let's take a look at where we're at in the standings in this really low res picture that I found and seemed like it was much higher resolution. This sucks. What the fuck kind of production values do I have? What is this? Do I have it? I'm embarrassed. Like, if I had haters, because I have no haters, if I had haters, they'd be coming after me with this shit. They're like, this is disgusting. Look, it looks like suddenly I'm broadcasting in soup. What the hell is this? These are the current standings in the Continental Classic. We've got Kyle Fletcher at the top of the Gold League with 6 points. Kazuchika Okada, Kevin Knight, and Pac follow right behind him at 3 apiece. Speedball Mike Bailey and the alternate, the replacement for Darby Allin, Jack Perry, Jungle Jack Perry, both at 0. So he's inheriting Darby's stuff. We'll get to Jack Perry in a second. As far as the Blue League goes, we've got 2 people sitting at the top. Konosuke Takeshita and Claudio Castagnoli, both with 6 points. John Moxley, Mascara Dorada, and Orange Cassidy, all with 3 points. And the only goose egg in Blue League is Roderick Strong. So far, Chad, I don't know what you think. The Continental Classic has been very, very good this year. I've been enjoying myself thoroughly. Been even excited to jump into Collision, especially when you have such high level matches as John Moxley and Konosuke Takeshita at your disposal, which is fantastic, right? Like that was such an excellent match, and I gotta say, look, it's kind of like I mentioned not that long ago. In fact, I mentioned it just last Thursday on the Dynamite review. Thank God that we have the Continental Classic in AEW right now, because Nelly, the rest is kind of rough. It's kind of rough around the edges, and I am starting to believe and accept the theory that during the NFL season, Tony is a little more hands-off with the creative in his company, and whoever he hands it off to does not do as good a job keeping everything everything together, right? Like this past year when Tony at some point, like in February or whatever, said, yeah, you know what? I'm back. I'm back in the weeds. I've got my, now that the season is over, I'm back into it. And everything in AEW's weekly television sort of started coming to fruition, started coming together, and then picked up that momentum that led them into All In, which is very, very exciting, and what was a very good strip of booking for AEW, and in some circumstances, I would even say excellent. Now it's like the Continental Classic is proof that you don't need to make things overly complicated to book some compelling, interesting matches that people will be into, because people are understanding the stakes. They understand what's going on, and you can see in their reactions they're very naturally invested in this, despite the fact that there are bigger stories, right? Like the Death Rider stuff, for instance. That's one that's permeating throughout the tournament. It had actually started before the tournament. A lot of headcanon being created around that. So, there's that thing. Okada and Takeshita is the other big high level story, I guess, that they've been telling. So, it's not that there's no stories. It's just that the stories within the context of the matches, within the context of the tournament, are all working fine, because all you need to do is book the tournament in a compelling way with great pro wrestlers who will fulfill the vision of competition for the tournament, and voila. That's really all you have to do. So as it stands, anyway, if we go back to the standings before moving on to break down other little talking points, if we overall, like, the one thing that makes the Continental Classic more difficult to cover and break down and analyze as opposed to the G1, for instance, is that all of the nights of like we don't know who's wrestling who on what night in advance. Like, unlike the G1 drops the tournament, drops the announcement of the tournament, and then follows up with, here are all the nights. Here are the lineups, is what I'm trying to say, for all of the nights of the tournament, so you can see exactly who's wrestling who where. And that's, it's like following your favorite sports team. Then you start seeing, oh, well, they're going to fight this. They're going to play against this team and that team and that team. Oh, and they have good chances here, but they're probably going to lose 2 in a row because they're fighting. And that's part of the fun of getting into the G1 and starting breaking things down, is seeing, well, who's coming up, what's next, and what are their chances moving forward, and that can sort of skew what how you're feeling. But the problem that we have with the Continental Classic is that we don't have all of this planned out, and everything is very scattershot. So, there are people right now who have 3 matches in the books already, and that means that they only have 2 left. You have people who only have 1 match registered, and so that's an entirely different setup, and that makes it really hard to sit down and start predicting, because Tony Khan is just dropping these matches, I guess, wherever he feels makes the most sense. And I would prefer, but it's just me. But I would prefer if, one night of Dynamite, we had like 3 matches from one league, and then on Collision we had 3 matches of the other league, and so on and so forth. And then that way at the end you'd have like a wrap up standing. Yeah, you'd have the standings for the tournament, you'd have them all like right there. And then you could see the progression and you could start making some analysis and whatnot. And, but this is not the case. This is unfortunately not the case. We still have to, because things are still very much scattershot, and they stay scattershot till the finish. So, I'd really like to start breaking down, like, chances, and are people going to be eliminated? Are people done with the tournament? Are people, but it's not that it's too early. It's that it's unevenly balanced. That's the thing that's kind of annoying. I mentioned that there are people in the tournament who have already 3 matches in the bag. Well, that would be Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli of the Blue League. They both have 3 matches in, and they're, and right now, so that means that they have 2 left, right? So Moxley has the potential to finish the tournament with a maximum of 9 points, whereas Claudio has the potential to finish the tournament with 12. So Claudio is actually in a good spot to possibly beat his stablemate Jon Moxley within the tournament. And look, this is who he has left. He's got Konosuke Takeshita and Roderick Strong left, right? Well, Roderick Strong could potentially pull off an upset. Mascara Dorada, we've been seeing a couple of upsets, right? We've seen the Kevin Knight upset. We've seen the Mascara Dorada upset. But there will come a time where the upsets are going to stop happening. I'm not saying that there's not going to be any more. Like you could absolutely make like a stunning upset at the very last minute, right? And at the last match or whatever, and just like, hey, there you go, upset, and then suddenly it's like, oh my goodness, it completely destroys the brackets, and now we have new contenders or whatever, new people moving forward into the semifinals is what I'm trying to say. Or not, look, he's definitely beating Roderick Strong. I'd say Claudio is. Takeshita, though, I'm not sure. And I think I would feel that Konosuke Takeshita versus Claudio Castagnoli might be one of the last matches, if not the final match of the Blue League in league competition before we move on to the semis, right? Because don't forget, there's 2 people moving forward, right? There are 2 people who are going to move forward. The 2 people moving, there are 2 people moving forward. The winner of Block A, or Block A of the winners of both leagues. I'll get this right. The winners of both leagues will face off against the second places of the opposite leagues, right? So Gold League 1 versus Blue League 2, and Blue League 1 versus Gold League 2. I should have just explained it like that. It was a lot easier. So let's say in the following scenario happens, right? Because do we all accept that Roderick Strong, Mascara Dorada, and Orange Cassidy are not moving forward? Are we comfortable in that assessment? I think we are. I would assume that Konosuke Takeshita is going to win the league and will win it handily, if only because he is currently the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. That would be weird if he started dropping matches to, again, no disrespect here, but to Orange Cassidy, for instance. It would just be weird. So I think now that he's knocked Mox out of the way, all he had, I think his stiffest competition left in the Blue League is Claudio Castagnoli. So let's say Claudio loses to Takeshita, but defeats Roderick Strong. That gives him 9 points. Let's say Jon Moxley wins his 2 next matches, which are against Roderick Strong and, longtime rival Orange Cassidy. have a back and forth in regards to their rivalry, right? In regards to wins and losses. It's not all one-sided here, but it's plausible, very, very plausible that Mox wins his 2 other matches. Well, if both Death Riders in the Blue League finish with 9 points, Claudio Castagnoli is the guy who moves forward because he has the tiebreaker over Mox because he defeated Mox. So he will be moving forward. I'm starting to think that this is a very plausible scenario. I don't think Konosuke Takeshita is going to lose any matches. Like, Konosuke Takeshita is not going to lose against Mascara Dorada. He's not going to lose against Orange Cassidy. You could make a case for Claudio, but this is the kind of thing that has repercussions, that can have ramifications in New Japan. So, are we playing that game? And Claudio's already a champion. I don't know. I don't know. There's a champion in another promotion, not in New Japan. I don't know. I'm a little ambivalent right now when it comes to Claudio defeating Takeshita. I really feel like Takeshita is going to ace this one. He's just going to come out swinging and finish with a perfect tournament. And wouldn't he be the first? And chat, you correct me if I'm wrong here, but if Takeshita does indeed do that, I believe that would mean he would be the first. He would be the first wrestler in Continental Classic history to get a perfect score to win every one of his matches, right? I think so. That's my assessment of the Blue League so far, right? Over on the Gold League side, well, I guess the big story is Darby Allin, who, surprise, surprise, might actually have like brain damage. Oh, hang on. Chad is making a good point, and nice to see you, Dave Schneider. Welcome to the chat. Claudio and Takeshita could potentially end in a draw. That actually, I keep forgetting the draws, and you're right. And that is actually a potentially very real finish that could happen, because by having Claudio win 1 point instead of a 0, again, in the scenario where Mox wins his 2 next matches and Claudio beats Roderick Strong, getting the 1 point will give the visual to everyone that Claudio just eked over Mox, as opposed to having to resort to the tiebreaker scenario, which is, it's not as visually represented. You sort of have to make that up not make it up, but it has to connect in your brain type of thing. It has to be explained to you. Whereas, 10 is bigger than 9. So the guy who has 10 wins type of thing, right? And then Takeshita, well, he moves forward regardless. So that's what we have. That's what we have so far. Let's go back to the Gold League. As I was saying, the lead here, of course, is the fact that Darby Allin is out, that he, surprise, surprise, might actually have, brain damage. Because that's what he said, right? In his little promo that he cut, saying that he wasn't going to be able to continue with the tournament, is that he couldn't feel his legs when he was fighting Kevin Knight, and he's like, okay, that's not good. That's just not good. Like that. That's an absurd situation, and of course he needs to be pulled. He needs to stop wrestling for a long, long time. That's severe. Like, that is not good. That's not good news. It's not a good diagnosis if you're sent to the hospital, you're rushed to the hospital because you can't feel your legs. It's kind of bonkers. It's actually a lot bonkers. I'd be like, he said it, wasn't that what he said? He said, for the first time in my life, I was scared. Hell yeah. I can understand that. I don't know what kind of impact that has moving forward. I mean, look, we'll wait till we get, we'll see how things go. And maybe if we get a deeper diagnosis of what happened to Darby, we get a better understanding of his injury. We'll break it down a little more. But I mean, if that's what it was, that's serious shit, people, is what I'm saying, right? Yeah, I mean, I said brain damage, but it could also be spinal damage. I mean, it's huge. It's not good. Anyway, speaking of not good, Jack Perry is the alternate. Look, I don't mind Jack Perry. I don't mind Jack. I don't mind Jack Perry as much as multiple other people do. But I think we have, is it okay to say that Jack Perry in the Gold League replacing Darby is a downgrade? Is that okay to say? Because I legitimately believe it's a downgrade. And like I said, I don't mind Jack Perry as much as his true haters do. Like, because he has a select gaggle of really intense haters who really like just break down everything he does and just like eviscerate him alive, type of thing. And I'm like, he doesn't bother me as much. And I even think for a time I enjoyed what he was doing. Like, it's fine. It's fine. Like, he's not my first choice in anything. He doesn't bother me. But I also recognize that this is not an exciting guy. Like, this is not an exciting alternate in this tournament. Because as Chad pointed out, could have been just about anyone else. We got, Beast Mortos in the chat, of someone that could have stepped in, right? El Clone would have been interesting and given him something to do, maybe get some heat on him, right? Before the tournament started, I was hoping that Ace Austin was going to be in it. And I would have tagged him in. I would have brought Ace Austin in and have him get a couple of occasions to just go out there and wow us, especially considering some of the opponents that he has in this match, in this tournament, I should say. Unfortunately, we wouldn't have been able to get the Kevin Knight match because that already happened. But, Mike Bailey, Kyle Fletcher, Pac versus Ace Austin. Yeah, I mean, that would have been pretty rad. I kind of feel like he's been sort of set aside for now. He had his, when he had his debut on Collision, what was it? It's like 2 months ago at this point, right? Again, time has no bearing on me, but I think it's 2 months ago. I think he dazzled. I think he dazzled a lot of people. I thought he was very good. I thought he had a great fucking debut. And then you get him in here and you have him like, this is a guy who has tons to prove. He's got, he wants to be on TV. He wants to secure a spot in AEW. He, just get him in there and have him take the L's. It doesn't matter at this stage. He doesn't have to go out there and win. He doesn't have to finish the tournament with 9 points. Who gives a shit? Like, just have him go out there and tear the house down. Have these great matches with great pro wrestlers. The only guy here that I wonder if he would have had a good match with was Kazuchika Okada. Not because he couldn't, because Okada is one of the greatest of all time, but Okada could legitimately play the, we're giving 40% effort with this guy. I don't know who this guy is. I'm 40%ing this one. Yeah, I got to fly out. I got to go catch a Knicks game after this. That's the kind of attitude that Okada would have maybe portrayed in this situation. I just think Jack Perry is a very, it's a very white bread type of milk toast. That's the one I was looking for. It's a very milk toast type of of switcheroo where you're like, all right, that's Ooh, see, Brian Keith is already more exciting. Brian Keith is very exciting. Mark Davis would have been very good as well. Another guy who can be an absolute losing post, but also a guy that you don't see. Look, it works because like Brian Keith, like Ace Austin, these are all guys that you know are not going to win. And the thing is that with Jack Perry, I don't know if we're supposed to believe that he might win. But here's the thing: is like ultimately maybe because now that the tournament has started, you get Jack Perry in there. Maybe this type of substitution with Jack Perry just makes the most sense because maybe the number of wins that Darby was supposed to get is perfectly, you can just like copy paste it onto Jack Perry and people go, sure, that this is a result that makes sense for this pro wrestler, right? And maybe if you threw in a guy like Brian Keith, who I think is great and is a fantastic pro wrestler and is currently criminally underused in AEW, but nonetheless is perceived by the AEW crowd as a loser, as a jabroni, well, then maybe him ending the tournament with Darby's score, which maybe is 9? Maybe that would have been a little too much, right? Maybe that'd have been like, okay, well, this is, if you have Brian Keith or Ace Austin for that matter, or Mark Davis, if you have either of those three lose with 9 points, and we're being speculative, of course, that's a statement win for someone who is so low on the pecking order. That's a statement win. That means that's a statement. And the statement is, okay, we believe in this guy. We are going to push this guy forward, moving forward. Vocabulary, Warren. You're an English major. That's what we're going to do here, right? We're going to push this guy forward, and for you to understand that this guy has value, and will interest you as fans. Well, there you go. We're going to give him 9 points, essentially, right? And so maybe throwing in one of these guys doesn't work because they're too low on the pecking order for the amount of points that Darby was scheduled to bring in. Because by putting Jack Perry in here, like it's an equivalence, right? Where you're just like, well, okay, it'll be fine. You'll have, whatever amount of points Darby was supposed to collect, you can just like give them to Jack Perry, whoever he's supposed to win and lose to, all makes sense. And then you don't have to retool all the tournament is the point. Then you don't have to sit down and start rethinking your brackets or your points if you bring in someone who winning 9 points doesn't make sense. If anything I'm saying right now makes sense. I believe I am making sense, though. It doesn't keep me from wishing it had been someone else. I would have really, really enjoyed Ace Austin in this. Hell, I would have enjoyed Austin Gunn, quite frankly. That would have been pretty rad too, but look, it's not meant to be. And it's not meant to be. And yes, we do wish the best for Darby and his road to recovery on this one. First the first of many. It's not even the first. It is what it is. But to me, like Jack Perry is not as interesting. But look at who is, Jack Perry versus Kazuchika Okada. Okay. It's like, I don't know. I don't know what's going to come out of that. Speedball, maybe, there might be something really interesting there. Kyle, there'll probably be something interesting there. Pack, it depends. I don't know. Like I'm not as, these are not matches that entice and excite me. And this injury talk has been slowing everything down because as we talked about, there's two guys in the Gold League who only have wrestled one match so far. So we things have got to pick up here. Tony is so terrified at these. Look, I understand that he delayed waiting to be absolutely 100% sure that Darby could not be cleared by medical. I understand why he did it. Why he delayed the match, the Darby match for basically 2 shows, right? I get it. I understand. I also think that, it just replace and move on, or forfeit and move on. Do something, right? Because the more you wait, the more it just takes away from the tournament. At the very least, like, he didn't wait too long, and we know how it goes, but we did skip 2 nights of action for the Gold League because of this, and it's kind of suffering. Now the Blue League has an advance. These are my quibbles with the tournament, that not everything is laid out clearly. And, Tony's afraid of projecting too much into the future and then maybe having to move matches around for whatever reason, or, someone gets injured. And it's like, who cares? It doesn't matter. It's a tournament and it's part of it. People will get hurt. Matches may need to be moved around. It doesn't really matter. That's just part of it. It only matters to the weirdos on Twitter that Tony listens to, interacts with. That's all. It only matters to them, because to the rest of the viewing audience, to regular, normal brained people, Tony's just like, the normal, this kind of stuff doesn't matter. And we're like, yeah, no, this is part of the game. This is what a tournament is, goddammit. You know what I mean? Great fucking matches this weekend. If you haven't seen the Collision matches, I highly suggest you go back and watch all 3 of them. Cassidy and Orange Strong was a blast. Cassidy and Roderick Strong was a blast, an absolute blast. Mascara Dorada and Claudio Castagnoli was so much fun. And what a great surprise win. I'm super excited about it. Kind of makes me wonder if this won't have repercussions in CMLL. Because Claudio Castagnoli is currently the World Heavyweight Champion after defeating Gran Guerrero, what was it, 2 weeks ago at this point? And now, well, he just got pinned by Mascara Dorada. So should he be next in line for a title shot? Then again, Mascara Dorada is not what you'd call a heavyweight. I don't know. I don't know. Just throwing that around there. And of course, Takeshita and Moxley was excellent. It was excellent. It was a great match. Great main event. No notes. It was, well, no, there are notes, but it was excellent. And the final stretch, the final third of that match felt like a great G1 match where both guys are just like laying bombs on each other. You've got yourself some fighting spirit. People are up on their feet, cheering, getting excited. It really, really was cool. It was an excellent, excellent match. It made me very happy because I really wanted Jon Moxley and Kensuke Takeshita to have a really great, hard-hitting match. And that's what happened. So look, absolutely, everyone needs to watch those 3 matches from this past Collision. This is just absolutely phenomenal stuff. So that's where we're at right now in the Continental Classic. Probably next time we talk about this, we'll have maybe a clearer picture. We'll start to build in the Gold League. I'm starting to think that maybe in the Gold League they're gonna do the league. That's going to be the one where everyone is going to be very close to each other in points. Whereas I feel like the Blue League, they're going to, as soon as Takeshita has his next match and he gets up to 9 points, I think it's going to become clear that they're going to be separating, that the league is going to be split into two. And you're going to have your top 3 guys that are really going to be battling it out. And then everyone else is going to fall to the bottom. Like Roderick Strong right now has to, he has to win his next match if he wants to stay in contention, because he absolutely has to. If he doesn't win his next match, I fear that he might be our first guy to be soft eliminated from the tournament, or just officially, not even soft, maybe even just officially eliminated from the tournament. But we'll talk about it next time. What do we got here? What could this be? We got some TNA news. We got the big news, the biggest news. That's all we have here on the MrWarrenHayes show. Only the biggest news. TNA. Total nonstop action. Why is it not loading? Is this the TNA curse affecting? Oh, here we go. TNA Wrestling will officially have a new home in 2026. We're reading an article off of Post Wrestling. It's Jack Wannon. Your guess is as good as mine. TNA has signed a multi-year deal with AMC to air its Thursday night program Impact on the U.S. broadcast channel beginning next year. The agreement, which had been rumored for weeks prior to this confirmation, was announced Tuesday in a press release. Specifics regarding the exact length of the deal or financial details surrounding the agreement aren't known currently. As part of the new agreement, TNA will get a weekly time slot at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on both AMC and AMC Plus, starting on January 5th. The promotion's live premiere on the station will take place at the Curtis Culwell Center in Dallas, Texas. A TV taping has also been announced for Albuquerque, New Mexico on January 22nd and 23rd. Cable channel AMC was in approximately 60 million US houses as of late 2024 per an SEC filing by the company. The company's online subscription service, AMC Plus, which launched back in 2020, currently has around 11 million subscribers. A significant goal for TNA Wrestling in 2025 has been to secure a new TV deal with President Carlos Silva, emphasizing in numerous interviews that he had spent this year pursuing a new agreement for the company. Access TV, which is owned by Anthem Sports and Entertainment, the owners of TNA as well, has been the main home for the weekly Impact program in recent years. The new agreement takes TNA off Access and back onto a non-Anthem owned media property in the US for the first time since 2019, a significant step for the promotion. So, that's the gist of it. And, when this was announced on a couple of days ago, I was really excited because I was like, oh, I cannot wait when the stream comes around on Thursday to have all the juicy details, to have all the deets, how much they're being paid, how long the deal is for, how many live shows are they going to be putting on versus taped, and so on and so forth. And we still have nothing. Now, I know there's a guy out there, can't remember his name off the top of my head. There's a guy out there who reported alleged details, right? Saying it's $30 million total, right? For like 3 years, 4 years or something like that. Plus, apparently, AMC would have a buyer's regret clause, which would allow them to bounce the channel, to bounce the show off of their airwaves, like within the first 60 days or something like that. But like, I don't necessarily buy that this guy, I don't remember his name, but I remember that he's reported some stuff in the past that didn't turn out how we thought. Like, this was the same guy who was reporting that the Performance Center was moving from Orlando to Las Vegas, right? Now building, bigger facilities in the performance center. So, that's essentially where we're at right now with this thing, is that we don't know anything. We don't know what the value is. We don't know how good it is. We have no idea how big of a deal this is. However, we have to say this: whatever deal they got, and this is very important, whatever deal they got, it is a win for TNA. Whatever it is, if it's $30 million a year, $5 million a year, $1 million a year, whatever it was, it is a win. TNA was essentially creating free content for Access because they were, a house device. They were an in-house production company, and they were essentially putting on these shows and not making a dime off of them for Access, who needed content and didn't have the money to pay for it. You see how that goes? So now, whatever amount of money that they are being paid, it is an increase in the, it's a 100% increase. From 0 to whatever is 100%. I would love to know some more details outside the fact of the general things that we know, that it's a multi-year deal, that it's going to be called Thursday Night Impact, by the way, right? It's going to be called that. And, the date, and that it's going to be on Thursdays, which a lot of people seem to believe that they were going to go head to head with Dynamite. I think it's a wise thing to not do that. Never mind the petty wrestling wars, and maybe AMC stepped in, right? Maybe AMC put their foot down and like, look, we're not going to put you on Wednesdays. Let's get as much audience as we can here, right? Let's not try let's not be stupid about this. Maybe they look. Anyway, Thursday nights still belong to WarrenHayes, but also counter-programmed by Thursday Night Impact on AMC. And they're starting later, right? They're starting at 9 p.m. as they mentioned, because right now they start at 8 on Access, right? So yeah, I also mentioned, this, whatever deal they got is a good one. It's better than what they had. This is their best deal that they've had since losing their show on Spike TV, and we're going all the way back to 2014, right? They were on all sorts of stuff, Pop Network, and what was the last one? Destination America. No, was that? No, it was the Pursuit channel. That was the last one that they were on, right? It was the Pursuit channel that they were on last. It was all, complete disasters. And yeah, I mean, look, Carlos Silva, he said that he was going to go out and secure the deal this year, and he did, despite a lot of people being very skeptical because lol TNA. Look, you got to chalk this up as a big win for old Carlos here. This was a big win for him, right? Because like I said, he's going to carry the company into an era where they're actually going to get paid. They're going to get paid for being on TV. After years of, like I said, after years of just creating free content, right? Now, in this regard, right, TNA's partnership with WWE, a lot of people are speculating, right? A lot of people are speculating that WWE did help out to get the deal, right? It's like this deal would have never happened if TNA didn't have the support of WWE, maybe coaxing things and whatnot. But Carlos Silva, on one of the many interviews that he's given over the past couple of days, basically answered, no, I did this all by myself. He really sounded like, no, I didn't need dad. I was able to go to the dealership and negotiate my own rate on my car. I didn't need dad to come with me. kind of thing. Like it sounded very, very weirdly defensive. You want to hear like just again, a theory? I think he might be right. I think the AMC deal, he was able to open up and create and make it happen all by himself. But maybe that happened once WWE exhausted its own contacts, right? Like, and hear me out. Maybe, and I think this is plausible, maybe at first WWE helped open up some doors, right? Introduce Carlos to the right people, send one guy's email to Carlos and whatnot, just set him on the right track. But maybe all these doors eventually closed again for whatever the fucking reason. We don't want more wrestling. We're not interested. Who cares, right? Maybe the point is that maybe WWE did open some doors, but those doors didn't lead anywhere. Whereas maybe Carlos, emboldened by all of this, emboldened by the chatter, right? Because people talk in this business, and well, maybe it started to go around that there's this hot wrestling property that's looking for a home, and maybe he opened this door up all by himself through his previous meetings and whatnot. So it's hard to say, right? But like I think it would be naive to think that WWE didn't have any influence, like they did not have, okay, so even if they didn't open any doors, having NXT talent show up on TNA has successfully created a little more buzz around the company than what you'd usually get, to the point that all of the grifter bad faith weirdos are all saying, well, TNA is a viable number 2 national promotion now because, of course, right? Because they're dopes. A lot of visibility, lots of crossover talent. Mickey James showing up at the Royal Rumble. Then you have Jordan Grace. Then you have people going on to NXT people going on TNA, Joe Hendry, so on and so forth. I think it's clear to believe that ultimately WWE was the main beneficiary of all of this crossover that they had, because they ended up stealing away some of TNA's best talent, right? But TNA was like, no, look, we're gonna press on because the exposure is really important, right? It's all about the exposure. But even if Carlos says, no, I did it myself, and even if WWE didn't open any doors, like from a business perspective, from a corporate perspective, I think it's hard to deny that WWE's presence on TNA programming didn't help lift its profile, I guess you'd say. It's hard to say what the outcome of all of this is, because we don't know any of the details. So it's very hard to sort of break down and say, well, okay, this is great because of the length, the money. We don't know anything. Maybe tomorrow in the Observer, fingers crossed, Dave will have a little more information to share, or maybe not. Like as it stands right now, there's nothing that's been disclosed. So at the very least, we know it's not like this multi-million-dollar transaction that you'd want to pat yourself on the back about. The fact that they're keeping the details very, very hush hush should tell you that it's not the greatest. It's not the greatest deal of all time. Otherwise, they would absolutely be heralding the amounts and the size and whatnot. And then we'll also be able to see, but one thing, and it's Rich Craich that pointed this out on his in his article that he published on the Voices of Wrestling Patreon about this. It's free, by the way, if you want to go check that out. He had mentioned that for the first time in years, TNA is actually going to appear on ratings lists, right? Because Access was always kind of off and on, mostly off. But here we're actually going to be able to see and measure the size of the audience that they have, something that TNA has, something that we haven't been able to do in a really, really, really long time. So, it'll be very, very interesting to see how they stack up to AEW, of course, but even to NXT and the rest of the properties. So it's interesting, what's going to happen. Like I said, hard to say, hard to project into the future without knowing all the details. But, either TNA will become the number 2 promotion, in the US, or at the very least, a third, competitive, healthy promotion, or it will continue to be like another developmental arm for WWE. It'll be either or. So we'll keep an eye on it. I wish we had more stuff more meat to chew on, but unfortunately this bone is pretty bare. Trust me, I'm going to keep an eye on this and we'll talk about it some more when we get around. I think 200K would be their long-term goal. 200K weekly? I have no idea. Like, I'm not the ratings expert. And especially now that, ever since Nielsen changed their models, I don't know what to think of it. No one's really been doing some deep wrestling ratings analysis because the current Nielsen model is so different and has thrown a loop into everything we know that there's really no point, I would assume 200K. Well, what does AMC average, right? I think we had this information. Where did I find this information? I feel like we talked about it. Yeah, these shows are not on AMC anymore. What date is this? Oh, this is 2024. No, this is bullshit. Any historical look at Impact's TV ratings. That's not exactly what we're looking for. I feel like we had that information. AMC averages 193,000. Yeah, you'd want to be in that average, right? I'd be stunned if they do that. What's the lead in? Exactly. Look, the first night that they're going to go live, right, on January 15, that's going to be like, that number is going to be inflated and will not represent what the show is going to do, right? It's going to be the first big show. People are going to come in, they're going to be curious, or, wrestling fans are just going to tune in to see like the first show. There's going to be more people than usual that will watch the show on the first night. There will be an immediate drop off the week after, and so on and so forth, until they settle in their zone, right? And the CM Punk Rampage, right? The addition of Rampage of CM Punk, like that blew the roof, right? It was like a million plus people tuned in to watch it, but then everything sort of tanked because it wasn't the CM Punk show. So it's like, is it going to perform well for the amount of homes that AMC has access to? Of course, we're not going to get the streaming numbers, so there's always that. We'll see. And from what I understand, from what I was told from people in the know with TNA, it would seem that the pay-per-views, but they're not pay-per-views. Well, let's call them pay-per-views. The pay-per-views that they do TNA and put on TNA Plus, right? Isn't that what it's called? Their service, TNA Plus. They're going to stay there. They're not going to be on AMC. So they're going to stay on TNA Plus. And I don't know if that is a good or a bad thing. I would have a tendency to say that if your media partner is unable to benefit from your monetized shows, that's a little weird. Of course, I wouldn't expect AMC Plus to be equipped as a streaming service to do pay-per-view like HBO Max does. Took HBO Max a long fucking time to get all that technology put together. So that took a long time. So yeah, it's like I'm wondering, I would say that it's a good thing for TNA in the sense that they maintain their service, they maintain their customer base. There's not going to be any friction from having to get your base to transfer to a new service to continue to watch and purchase the pay-per-views. But at the same time, I would assume that if they weren't included in the deal, that's a little weird, and that probably also means that they didn't get all that much money. So I'd be curious to know if TNA offered up the pay-per-views and AMC declined, or did TNA keep the pay-per-views for themselves and didn't offer it to AMC? That I'd be very, very interested in knowing how that went down. Anyway, keep an eye on all of this, but essentially, congratulations to TNA. It's whatever deal you got, it's a better deal than what you had. That's just how you see it. That whatever amount they're getting paid is better than whatever they were doing on Access. That's just the truth. That's just it. That's just the truth. Freddie Prinze Jr. claims that ESPN is so unhappy with the WWE deal. According to Freddie Prinze Jr., let's read this article. The actor and former member of the WWE creative team discussed Survivor Series 2025 on the latest episode of his Wrestling with Freddie podcast. By the way, where's your promotion, Freddie? You don't have to stay at home all the time with SMG. You can go. You can go and do stuff. He also mentioned that ESPN is hot about the deal. This is the quote here. ESPN, by the way, is so unhappy with the deal. That apparently he said while laughing. I was talking to a friend of mine who works for Disney, and he was just like, yo, they better make their money back on this deal. Like he said, they're hot. Guys, we need to buy more PLEs, is what he added. When I was a kid, I had an uncle who worked at Nintendo, and he gave me all of these secrets. He'd tell me about everything. He even, this one time he had me play Metroid 4. Yeah, Metroid 4. Like Metroid 2 hadn't even been out yet, and I was playing Metroid 4. And all of the kids on the playground were really impressed. They were super impressed because of my uncle who worked at Nintendo. I mean, this is kind of what it comes across as, right? Is it just me? It kind of comes across as I have a friend. I cannot but not find it funny for that, because it really is. But that being said, I'm loading something up and it's stalling. Okay. Sean Ross Sapp reached out to sources within WWE and ESPN, and a rep from ESPN told him this. He got two bits of information. The rep from ESPN told him he hadn't heard anything. He hadn't heard any negative chatter, and they're happy with the partnership. The WWE rep reached out and said no one in upper management is aware of, this is the quote. Sean quoted this. No one in WWE upper management is aware of Freddie Prinze's role in wrestling or otherwise. Yeah. It's the most gotten to statement, right? Where he's like, we don't know, what does he know? I don't know, what is he talking about? We don't know who he is. And it's like, okay, it's kind of disingenuous. Like, come on now. He worked for WWE for years. All right, so let's not be stupid. The interesting thing with WWE's statement is that it didn't refute Freddie's statement. They didn't say he was wrong. They didn't say he was wrong. They just said, no one is aware of Freddie Prinze Jr.'s role in wrestling or otherwise. Yeah, but that wasn't the question. The question, it's like, what do you think about, is there any veracity to this? What do you think about the statement? So, but that's a gotten to answer. That is absolutely a gotten to answer. There's no other way to cut it. A poised response, of, the partnership's going well. We're very happy. We're excited, blah, blah, blah. All the usual platitudes. But no, this is someone's like, the fuck, Freddie Prinze Jr., go fuck yourself. That's ultimately what they're saying. That's ultimately what they're saying. Yeah, if he's so smart, how come he never started his own promotion? Exactly. If he's so good at this, why doesn't he have a show on ESPN? But interesting to point out here, it's interesting to point this out, that the president of ESPN was on the one of Sports Illustrated podcasts last week, before Freddie did his podcast this week, okay? He was on last week on this Sports Illustrated podcast, and he was asked about the relationship with WWE, and this is what the president, Burke Magnus, can you imagine? There's an actual living human being on Earth, okay, whose name is Burke Magnus, and it is not like a fictional name that some young adult author gave to one of their characters, a name they gave to one of their characters, like the CEO of a company, right? Where you would absolutely say there's a Burke Magnus. This is actually someone who was birthed into the world, last name Magnus, and the parents decided to call him Burke Magnus. Anyway, what were we saying? Oh, yeah. So this is what Burke Magnus, the ESPN president, had to say about the relationship with WWE. Quote, "It's gone great so far. They are fantastic to work with. They really hustle on behalf of their property." I'm sorry. I'm already laughing. Excuse me. I'm sorry. The superstars are highly engaged in promoting themselves. The broad... Let me start out. The superstars are highly engaged in promoting themselves, the broader WWE, and their stories. It's been really good so far. We're looking forward to WrestleMania next year, which should be our first. Listen, you are the president of the promotion of the fucking network, right? Don't call it a station or else you'll get Eric Bischoff really, really angry. You're the president of the network, and you're asked, "Hey, how's the relationship with WWE?" They promote their product really well. They really hustle hot on behalf of their property. They're superstars. They're really good at promoting themselves and also their stories. I'm reading this and I'm like, this is a terrible quote. Like, I hold like the thing that WWE fans will never accept in this circumstance here is that ESPN has not said once with confidence, the partnership with World Wrestling Entertainment is a great success. What a cornerstone of the ESPN programming. That is a sign that things are going really, really well. But if you have the president go out and say, well, like essentially, oh, the wrestlers, they're pretty good at social media. That's essentially what he's saying. That's pretty much what he's saying. And he doesn't say anything about the performance on ESPN, how many people are watching, the turnover, how much WWE is preventing churn within the company. Jack shit on any of those fronts. He didn't say a fucking word that puts over any form of key performance indicator. Anything. Subscriptions have been tremendous and nothing but going up, and people are, we're getting a whole bunch of news. Nothing to give you the impression that they believe they are getting their money's worth. And then meanwhile, the WWE rep, when asked about, Freddie Prinze's comment, he goes, well, who gives a fuck about Freddie Prinze Jr.? That's essentially what he said. But the statement, but I don't care if you don't give a shit about Freddie Prinze Jr. Tell me about what he said. He spoke to a friend who works at Disney and ESPN is not happy. What do you got to say about that? And they didn't. So is this going well for them? All signs point to probably not. Don't want to say an outright no, but they would be touting numbers. ESPN does it with all sorts of other sports properties that they have when they are breaking, ratings records or whatever the fuck. They have their little Twitter account for their PR, and they put out some stuff whenever there's like a groundbreaking moment, whenever there's like so many people tuned in to this game of the fucking whatever football league that is in college. They'll do it constantly, and they never do it for WWE. Now, you can continue to pretend that everything is fine and dandy, but if it was going that well, Burke Magnus would have been showering WWE with praise. He would be saying good things about the company. He would be saying good things about their performance on ESPN specifically, as opposed to saying, they're fantastic to work with. They work really hard for their product. Their superstars are good at social media. It's bullshit. That's bullshit. And it means nothing. And if you're even moderately in corporate world and you follow, again, PR is part of my job. It's part of what I want to do. Oh, it's part of what I do. Not only want to do, but that's what I do for a living as a shoot. I read this, like if a partner wrote this about my company, I'd be like, oh, I'd be calling like the other reps. I'd be calling someone, say, why are they upset with us? They're clearly upset. What's going on? Because I probably don't know why they're saying shit like this. So I'd want to find out, because I'll probably have to do some damage control because something's about to blow up. That's the vibe I'm getting here. It's hilarious. So even though Freddie Prinze's comment does come across a little bit like, I have an uncle that works at Nintendo, and there might be some smoke to that fire, because there is no tangible sign that ESPN is happy with WWE. Now, Netflix, they've been saying, right? They've put out a couple of statements, just a couple, but saying is like, no, we're very happy with how things are going and blah, 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 right? One or two statements like that. So at the very least, you're like, all right, whatever their expectations were, if they're hitting it, That's good for them, right? But man, it's giving me Fox vibes. You know, when WWE was on Fox, and Fox would do the exact same thing. Fox would have their PR accounts put out all sorts of record-breaking stuff for their sports properties and whatnot, but they would never, ever say anything about WWE. And I'm getting that kind of vibe. I'm not going to lie. This one as well is to be continued. Probably not be resolved really until a couple of years from now or whatever. But I mean, ESPN just like everyone knows they overpaid for it, right? But the idea is eventually they're going to want to these corporations. The way it works is that they make all these huge purchases that they can't afford. That there's no way they're going to make their money back on it. And then they're going to try to unload these networks onto other media conglomerations so that they'll foot the bill eventually. They don't give a shit. They don't. That's how it works. It's the same thing with Paramount's insane deal with UFC. Like, Paramount is never making that money back. Ever, ever, ever. But that's not the point. Matt Hardy says 5-star matches don't matter. I want us to focus on story more than fucking 5-star matches. Yes, I'm reading an article off of What Culture, all right? Sue me. On the back of TNA landing a new TV deal with AMC, current TNA Tag Team Champion Matt Hardy has been discussing his preference for story over pushing constant 5-star matches. Speaking on the latest edition of The Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, Matt said he wants TNA to focus more on developing characters and storylines rather than for each match to be looking to outdo the last. I want us to focus on story more than fucking 5-star matches because that's fucking way too overdone now. I mean, in AEW, they can have all those, but like the type of audience we're looking for are people that are getting compelled by the storytelling and the characters. That is something I want to focus on. I'll say that blatantly out front. There'll be good wrestling on our show. Oh, he's probably serious, right? But we're not going to be obsessed over that. I think I think at the end of the day, pro wrestling, the most important things are moments more than moves. Yuck. Great wrestling, emphasis mine. Great wrestling matches are great, sure, no doubt about it. AEW, that's their thing. They stand out. They have their wrestling like that. I don't think that's the direction we're going to go. We need to find our own identity and go in a different direction. You can have great wrestling, but you can't go out there and have match of the year every single night in every single match on every single show. It fucking doesn't work. It's unsustainable, and you kill whatever you mean to make special. When it's time to have a match like that, you have a match like that. But if you try and do that every single time, nothing ends up being special. There's too many young guys in this business that do way too much shit. A lot of it's thrown away. It doesn't mean shit. I am adamant that I am going to do what I can to try and help the young guys. Like, this is how you maximize things. This is how you optimize things so you're not throwing things away. Lots of things here. Not every match can go out and be the highest quality match of all time, especially if you want things remembered. You need to emphasize some things. You almost have the impression that Matt Hardy was getting paid every time he used the word things. Okay, of course I have thoughts here. First of all, my first essential thought here is you will notice that every single person who comes out into the media and talks about how 5-star matches don't matter are always wrestlers who could not wrestle themselves a 5-star match to save their own damn life. These are people who are not remembered for their in-ring work and are maybe even, I don't want to say ridiculed, but bemoaned for not having a high working standard. It's usually these people. Off the top of your head, chat, who's another guy who talks about, stories and in particular heat, right? Over 5-star matches, right? At anytime we start talking about 5-star matches, this individual keeps talking about heat. You gotta get the heat. Who always brings that up? Bubba Ray Dudley, Bully Ray, whatever the fuck, right? Every single time. And that guy, could barely wrestle a decent match. So of course, what do you think Matt Hardy? Matt Hardy, the least compelling of the two Hardy boys, has always been the case, right? What's the connective thread here between Matt Hardy and Bully Ray talking about 5-star matches not being important? It's because they can't do it and they've never done it and they don't want, and they know that this taints their legacy, so they have to try and focus on something else. It's always the same. You will never have Will Ospreay come out and say 5-star matches don't matter. You will never have Ric Flair come out and say 5-star matches don't matter. Ever. You never have Bryan Danielson say that. The art of pro wrestling, right? The character work, psychology. There's the other catch-all term, right? There's no psychology to this. You need to add psychology. These are all the safety nets of all the wrestlers who do not have a high working standard and never did, and hit it even in their heyday by gimmickry, by smoke and mirrors. In the case of the Dudley boys, it was like, Devon, get the tables, all this bullshit. So, I'm like, that's, whatever, it's Matt Hardy, right? The second thing that really fucking annoys me, that really does annoy me, and he sort of brings it up here, but I think he's completely off base. It's the idea that you have to, that 5-star matches and storytelling are like church and state. You have to separate them. As The Offspring once told us, you have to keep them separated. There has to be a line between the two. You cannot have both, right? This is another thing that these people preach without necessarily realizing it, where it's like, well, you can you can have a 5-star match, but I'm more interested in stories. As if you can't have great storytelling in a 5-star match. I will even bring to you, Matt Hardy, that a great match, a 5-star match, more often than not, is accompanied by equally great storytelling. And I will give you two excellent examples in that regard. The first one, and fairly modern on top of that, so that, folks know what we're talking about here. First one, the Kazuchika Okada Kenny Omega series. What made it so great? The matches, but the story that accompanied it was perfect at the same time, was absolutely stunning. Second, and a fairly modern one on top of that, Toni Storm and Mariah May culminates at Revolution this year with the Hollywood ending match. One of my favorite matches of the year. But what made it special? Was it just because it was two women beating each other to death taping their hands up with glass to beat on each other? No, it's because there was 18 months of story and build to it that led to this epic apogee, like this perfectly wound up denouement of a tale, of a story, of a wrestling story. That's what made it special. So fuck off with this thing that 5-star matches, equal with the bar through it, right? With the hash through it, do not equal, we got to stop with that. That, the 5-star matches do not equal storytelling. Again, it's just words being put out by someone who is incapable of having a 5-star match, and all they have is to fall onto themselves to continue to justify what they do by saying only the story, the character, that's what's important. 5 stars, piss you. It's all the same after a while. Well, you know what's all the same after a while? Really bad fucking storytelling. And I will give credit to Matt Hardy, okay? I will give credit to Matt Hardy, because if there's one guy who's talking about, who you can easily talk about reinventing himself and making sure he stays relevant, Matt Hardy is a perfect example of that. A physically much more limited pro wrestler doing the whole, broken Hardy gimmick, right? And I'm talking back in the day, back when it was fresh and interesting, right? With the, brother Nero, I knew you'd come and all that shit there. That was unheralded, and he pushed the boundaries of it. And there was absolutely a high level of interest there, and good job for him, because he did it better than anyone else did. Even when that type of wrestling became the norm during the pandemic, no one did it better than Matt Hardy did back in TNA with the fucking broken Matt Hardy shit. He did. No one did it better. It was Impact. Was it Impact? TNA Impact. Now, the one thing that I will give, again, Matt Hardy credit for in this interview is that he says, he's basically saying, AEW can have their 5-star matches, right? That's fine. Us at TNA are going in a different direction. And that I can appreciate. And that I'm like, good for you. Good for you. If the company is confident enough in the creative direction that is provided to them by Delirious and Tommy Dreamer to say, well, we're going to go this way and we're going to try and be different, I have no issues with that. I have no issues. But essentially what Matt is saying here, when you read the quote properly and it stays in your brain a little bit, all he's saying is, we're going to be different than AEW, not different ourselves and try to create our own identity. All he's railing about is against 5-star matches. And that's the bread and butter of AEW, right? Because God forbid people would get entertained by watching wrestling matches, right? But that's what he's saying. So I give him credit to a degree, because he's saying, well, we want to go off and be different and not be like AEW. And that's commendable. But that's the thing, is that they just want to be different than AEW. And what do you think they're going to end up doing? They're going to end up just being sports entertainment. They're going to be WWE light. They're just going to come off as a copy of the market leader. And as long as TNA and WWE are singing the same song together, hopping down the yellow brick road, heading to the wonderful wizard of AMC, they're going to continue playing the same type of game with the same type of rules. TNA is not going to rock the boat. They're not going to suddenly do things to displease their Partners. How about that? I wanted to say another word, but I might have been going a little too far. They won't want to make their partners angry. Why do you think not that long ago, earlier this year, TNA put the kibosh on anything related with with intentional bleeding, right? Why do you think that was? Why do you think, was it because they wanted to? They were looking out for the safety of their performers? Wonk, 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 No, it's because WWE saw the fucking amount of blood that was being poured out of, I think it was Steve Macklin, or I can't quite remember. And they're like, no, this has got to stop. We won't be able to help you anymore. No more NXT people if you keep bleeding like this. I mean, that's the thing. Like, Hardy tries to give this a good vibe where he's saying, we want to be different. We want to plot our own course. But all he's saying is, we're going to be different than AEW, but ultimately we're going to be just like everyone else. And you can even argue that AEW, ain't all that different either. It's like, they're different enough when it counts, where it counts, but that's, oh boy, I'm opening up a can of worms here. Let's close that up and talk about it another time. But this is goofy shit. This is like, it's just knucklehead Matt Hardy, just trying to, and when he talks about, I'm going to go there and I'm going to help the young guys, come in, and I'm going to tell them, hey, slow down here and do that thing. It reminds me of the story of Mascara Dorada, Grand Metalik, the original Mascara Dorada, right? Grand Metalik, when he was, for some reason, he was welcomed back into CMLL one time, for a short stint, what was it, like 18 months ago, 2 years maybe? And then reports started coming out, I started hearing things about him. This was post him being fired by WWE, right? And he's going backstage and he's talking to all these young luchadors, right? Like a younger Mascara Dorada, like the guy who was supposed to take his mask, and all the other guys were there. And he's there telling them, you guys should slow down. You should try slapping on a headlock. You should, two luchadors. He's basically going out there talking like a WWE producer to fucking luchadors. Grand Metalik, a guy who was known for taking high risks and jumping off of ropes and doing this insane shit, rope walking and bouncing around right and left. A guy who was renowned for being high flying and risky. And he's going there, oh, you guys need to slow down. You will notice that Grand Metalik is nowhere to be found in CMLL. In most places, actually, these days. I mean, you kind of wonder what the fuck happened. I'll tell you one thing, he's not the new Hayabusa. Anyway, Matt Hardy, it's boneheaded comments. It's boneheaded comments from someone who is just trying to cover their own ass, so that they feel like they can still contribute, so that they're not forgotten in this sea of great matches of these, oh no, never mind all these great athletes. Come look at us, come look at us, the rodeo clowns. Characters. I think I'll end this segment on that. Ring of Honor Final Battle 2025 is a wrestling show that happened, and now the baton has been passed to me to review it. And that's what I'm going to do right now. Happened on December 5th, 2025, from the Greater Columbus Convention Center, as a part, of course, in Columbus, Ohio. You could probably have figured it out all by yourself. You didn't need to tell me, but for clarity's sake, I shall. Part of the GalaxyCon festivities. So, I couldn't tell you exactly how many people were there. I think it's a venue that isn't tracked by WrestleTix, so I'm not sure we're ever going to get some kind of number in that regard, because it didn't look like a packed venue. Didn't look like there were all that many people there. You know, there was this. It looked especially dire when the Death Riders came out for their tag team match. You know, Dan Garcia and Wheeler Yuta, of course. And when they came out, you know, they do the panning. They didn't do a pan of the crowd, but the angle was of the camera was shooting towards the crowd, and all you could see as the guys were coming out, as both dudes were coming out, was just like rows of empty seats. I'm like, oh, that's not great. So yeah, I mean, it didn't look like a packed show. It didn't look great, but you know, the show itself was good. You know, it was a good little wrestling show. Look, I wouldn't call it great. I will not go and go down that road. I don't think this was a great wrestling show. I think it was I thought it was a perfectly good but unremarkable wrestling show. How about that? Couple of matches here that I do believe deserve attention. There's a couple of matches here that I truly did love, that I did think were great. But overall, I think it's a perfectly good show. I think there's, went on to the old cage match earlier today to check out how things were going on that front. I think this is an overrated show, to be perfectly honest. 8.78 is the general feeling. There's some ratings for some matches where I'm like, the cage match inmates and I did not watch the same match. And look, as much as I had a blast watching Mercedes Moné and Red Velvet, that completely over-delivered and blew away my expectations, it is not a 9 out of 10 match, which would be like a 4 and 3/4, like a 4 3/4 type of situation, right? That's the area we're in when we're around the 9s on the cage match. I mean, we might look. I'm not gonna quibble with people over quarter star ratings and whatnot. I mean, whatever floats your boat. But with the reaction that I'm seeing right now in regards to this show, I saw a lot of people calling it a banger show and whatnot. Like I said, I thought this was a perfectly good, competent wrestling show. I enjoyed myself. There were some high points, but it's an overall unremarkable show. And that really did feel like it was slapped together last minute. And I'm sorry to say, despite the fact that I don't watch Ring of Honor, most of you probably don't watch Ring of Honor. Well, that's not true. If you're listening to this, there's a fair chance that if you're listening to one guy on the internet breaking down, cards and wrestling matches, there, especially when it comes to Ring of Honor, you're listening to this Ring of Honor review, there may be a slightly above average chance that you are actually subscribed to Honor Club and you watch the weekly Ring of Honor stuff. So I don't want to minimize that. That's entirely possible. But let's be honest. Nonetheless, let's be candid with each other. No one watches Ring of Honor, and I don't watch Ring of Honor on the regular. I only watch the pay-per-views because typically they have a tendency to deliver. I didn't think this one particularly delivered. I thought it was fine. I'm okay. I thought it was good. I'm not trying to claw my eyes out and regretting the time that I spent watching it. No. There were some highlights and so on and so forth. But no one watches. And despite the fact that, and circling back to the point that I was making, despite the fact that nobody watches and that I don't watch, I even felt like this show was slapdash, was hastily put together. There's everything was built within this week, right? Except maybe for a couple of exceptions, like the pure tag team, the pure women's title tournament. It's not a tag team. That clearly was not, hastily put together. That was, it was cursed. It's a cursed tournament. Don't get me wrong, but they eventually got through it. And I think I think this is a show that suffered because of it. I think it's a show that suffered because of that. Because of the fact that everything, even if you're not plugged in, and most of us aren't, you could still feel the quickly taped together show where there's just stuff happening here and you're like, oh, Eddie Kingston and Josh Woods was added to the show. Oh, really? Okay. All right then. Okay, sure. And I mean, that's like ultimately, like, this is the big picture thought that I'm leading this review with, is just the state of Ring of Honor, right? It's this, like, you know, Tony gets on his media calls, and then people ask about the deal, and then he keeps talking about, I want to find the right deal, and so on and so forth, right? And I can't help but wonder, quite honestly, who asks these questions in earnest? Well, I mean, look, from a journalistic point of view, it's a good question to ask, right? You're going on a Ring of Honor media call. You're going to ask, hey, so do you have an update on this media deal that you've been working on, you know, since ever since Copernicus found out that the Earth was revolving around the sun and not the other way around? And it's a legitimate question to ask. But you know, on the other hand, I'm legitimately wondering who wants to know, like, within wrestling fans today, who really wants to know if Ring of Honor is going to be on television? And ultimately, will it be a good thing if it ends up on television? What will it bring more to the table right now in a market which you could argue is saturated? Because on top of it all, on top of the market saturation that we're living in right now in regards to professional wrestling, the way Tony Khan has handled the perception of Ring of Honor via AEW programming over the past couple of years has completely diminished the brand, right? You have the Ring of Honor world champion, and I know other people have made arguments about this, and personally, like, I'm so detached from Ring of Honor, I don't care. I'm just bringing it up here to, you know, to exemplify my point. You have the Ring of Honor world champion, a world champion, mind you, of Ring of Honor, a storied, respected world title, right? In a tag team in AEW, and on the times that his tag team loses, well, he's the guy eating the pins. The one time we see a Ring of Honor title defense on television, or at least, you know, the interim title stuff where they merged both belts back together with the first Red Velvet Mercedes Moné match, well, Red Velvet loses. So, and this is like throughout. You can go back to Mark Briscoe's World Championship run and so on and so forth. Ring of Honor is absolutely treated like WWE treats NXT. It's the tertiary brand. It's developmental. Look, they're lauded women's world champion, right? The anchor upon which everyone who backs Ring of Honor, who loves Ring of Honor, they all turn to Athena, right? How great Athena is and how tremendous she is, what a great champion, and so on and so forth. Even her, she goes on AEW television and she cannot score a win. She can't win any big match when she goes to AEW. And I've talked about this on the podcast. I've talked about this on stream and whatnot. Athena can't get the job done in AEW. The way she's booked right now is she's too good to be in Ring of Honor, but not good enough to be on the main show, you know, with the true all-stars, right? The true cream of the crop of professional wrestling, the women's division of All Elite Wrestling, you know, in the TK verse, of course. That's where she's not good enough to be there, but she's too strong for a Ring of Honor. Like, that's the story they're telling with her, ultimately. And despite the fact that she has this legendary reign that everyone keeps talking about every single time, like how untouchable it is and whatnot, and how great it is. And, you know, despite all of that, she shows up on AEW television and she'll lose. It doesn't matter. Ring of Honor doesn't matter. And it has nothing to do with what the other points that I have, where I typically say, well, what's the point of being the 1,000+ day champion of a promotion that nobody watches? Who cares? Right? That's even aside from that point. The point is that, let's say in kayfabe, let's say you buy the kayfabe. Let's say you're completely into it, right? And you truly see the Athena 1,000 day championship as this the Ring of Honor women's title world championship as this extremely remarkable affair. How can you be satisfied then by her showing up on AEW and just losing? Losing and not even making a big deal out of it. It's like, well, Toni Storm put Athena away. Athena lost. Athena got pinned in the women's tag team tournament. So Mercedes Moné and her got kicked out because Athena got pinned. Like, Athena gets pinned all the time. She does the Owen Hart tournament. She loses in the first round. And this is your women's world champion in Ring of Honor, arguably the only star that Ring of Honor has, and who has this 1,000+ day reign, which is like the greatest thing ever, if I'm always supposed to believe what I read on social media. And she can't get a win on AEW. So all of this to say, and this is not a knock on Athena, because I want to underscore the fact that I think Athena is a very good pro wrestler. Like, this is not a thing where I'm trying to trash her. She's a very, very good pro wrestler. The point here is that Tony Khan doesn't care about Ring of Honor, because anything Ring of Honor related on AEW, or that crosses over, is just diminished. It has no value, and that's how it's treated, and that's how it is perceived. And so I wonder, like, even if Tony Khan gets a TV deal that suits him, that makes him happy, or whatever his weird reasons for not having a TV deal are just yet, why he doesn't have a TV deal just yet, whatever those reasons are, he diminished the brand. It's not even exciting to think about Ring of Honor on TV anymore, because the brand is neglected. It's been, it's been treated as second rate for such a long time now. Like, I don't even know what kind of viewership he would get putting Ring of Honor on, getting a media deal for Ring of Honor. I don't know what kind of viewership they would get, because he has trained his viewing, like the built-in audience that he'd have for Ring of Honor, i.e. the AEW audience, has all been trained at this point to believe that Ring of Honor is second rate. So, I where am I going with all of this, right? And quite frankly, I'm sort of wondering what initiated all this talk. Well, I know it's me, but where exactly I was coming from and all that. I think the point here that I'm trying to make is that this Final Battle show feels exactly how Ring of Honor is treated in the TK verse, as a lot of us like to call it. It's a show that felt just put together, a bunch of people thrown into a main event, because we never built a proper challenger for Bandito, a super popular Ring of Honor champion, mind you, a guy that AEW fans love. We weren't able to build anything. We weren't able to make any proper crossovers, whatnot, because Tony was bullied by all of the fucking weirdos on Twitter that it was so confusing to have Ring of Honor belts on AEW, right? So he stopped doing that because he's trying to appeal to the worst people on television. Not on television, on social media. So the show is a representation of all of that. It's I find like this Final Battle is exactly what Ring of Honor is. A good promotion with good little matches, but there's nothing to sink your teeth into. No one cares. oh, look at that. Blake Christian comes out with an ice cream cone mask in the shape of Bandito's mask. Wow. Yeah, but who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. Was there a feud there? Was there something? Was there really some animosity? I don't know. None of this, it doesn't matter. And I can feel that disinterest, and that disinterest feeds me into my own disinterest, if that makes sense. I mean, I will watch Ring of Honor pay-per-views because, like I said, those are typically good, even great. We've had some great Ring of Honor pay-per-views this year. So, more likely than not, I'm going to have a good time watching a Ring of Honor pay-per-view. So I don't mind, But I think like I, considering the fact that I considered that this was a good, not great pay-per-view, is exactly it's an embodiment of how Ring of Honor is treated so far. I think that that's my main overarching umbrella thought here to cover the rest of the review here, because I don't think there's a lead. I don't other than that. I don't think there's necessarily something we absolutely have to start talking about. Let's just go with we'll break down the show in order of the matches as they appeared, starting with the 0 hour pre-show, starting off with the Outrunners defeating the Premier Athletes, of course, Ari Daivari and Tony Nese, accompanied to the ring by Mark Sterling and Story Denali, who I think we're all very curious to see just how far this project with Story Denali is going to go, because she has size. She's tremendous, but it's like, in the storied history of AEW, there have been multiple big men in this company. And Tony Khan has never quite understood or knew exactly how to go about booking them. Will she be the exception? Well, we'll have to find out. I don't have many thoughts about this match. I thought it was fun. It was a good fan favorite opener with the Outrunners trying to land their spots, their crowd favorite spots, the "you son of a bitch" and all of that, and the Premier Athletes doing just great mid-card heel work. Like, they're fantastic. It's for what they have to do in this company, they're outstanding. They really are great. I enjoy, like, pound for pound. If you were to compare, because there's okay, let me rephrase this in another way that I haven't actually started phrasing this, but I'm gonna reset nonetheless. Think about, like, on this roster, there are two teams that serve the same purpose, right? The Premier Athletes and the Frat House. They're interchangeable in the sense that they're lower card heels that are just meant to be like obnoxious and, over the top heelish, so that when it's time for them to fight a babyface team, the babyface team gets a satisfying win, right? That they're jabronis, but their presentation is supposed to add to the heat, right? I'll take the Athletes over the fucking Frat House any day of the week. I'll take these guys over Jacked Jameson on my television any fucking hour of the day. This was, it was fun. We're not revolutionizing the world of professional wrestling here, tag team wrestling or whatever. What did I give this? I think I gave this like 3 stars, right? I jotted down 3 stars. Yeah, it's just a fine, fun match that got the crowd into it. Layla Gray defeated Zeta Steele. And I heard that the live broadcast had technical difficulties when this happened. And because I didn't watch the pre-show live. And when I heard that happen, I was like, oh, isn't that convenient that the match which WarrenHayes believes has the potential to be an absolute dreck somehow has technical difficulties. Oh, the conspiracy hat goes on. Who booked this match but then got cold feet and was like, oh, well, we'll just pretend we're having technical difficulties. No, that's not what happened. I watched the match. earlier today, where I'm recording this on the Saturday. So I watched it this morning, having a nice cup of tea. And you know what? This was actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be. The last time I saw Zeta Steele, she was in Marigold and she stunk. Now, I'm not sitting here and telling you suddenly that Layla Gray is, this phenomenal athlete, this revelatory pro wrestler. No. And I'm not saying that Zeta Steele is going to tear the house down either. But in fairness, she has improved tremendously. And I thought Layla Gray held herself well here too. Of course, this was mostly a showcase of Zeta Steele. Like she got a lot of shine in the match, got to flex a lot of her stuff. It had a tryout feel. And all Layla Gray had to do was eat some bumps and then land her finisher properly, which she did. Ian Riccoboni was calling her a blue chip prospect. I'm like, well, I don't know about that, but Zeta Steele is definitely not as bad as the last time I saw her. I saw nothing of her WWE ID stuff. Like, I think she was on Evolve for a little while. The ID Evolve. Look, I have no idea, but I'm like, okay, I think there's something there. But I'm not going to start jumping up and down and telling you all like she's the next big thing, but she's not a complete lost cause as the first few times I saw her in Marigold, where I was like, who is this person? What is she doing? She needs a career redirection bad type of thing. No, I think there's something there. I think there's something good to this. So I wouldn't be upset if Zeta Steele showed back up on more TK verse stuff. Anyway, Layla Gray got the win. Layla Gray, there's something just off-putting enough for me to be like, and I can't put my finger on it, but there's something about her. There's something about how she carries herself. I don't know, now I'm not completely dismissing her, but I don't know. I can't, like I said, I can't quite put my finger on it. Yeah, but she's far from being like my go-to. Let's put it that way. She was fine here. Nothing out of the ordinary. I gave this 3 stars as well. I thought both of them worked hard. I thought this was a good base match. It's like not much negative to say about it. We get a backstage segment with Sammy Guevara, the Beast Mortos, and Hechicero. God damn it, we got a lot of Sammy Guevara on this fucking show. Anyway, we'll get to that. We'll get to that sooner than later. Then Ace Austin defeated Lee Johnson. I liked this match. I thought it was a lot of fun. Athletic, hard-hitting. Austin looks great. Jesus, the size of this man's thighs is absolutely preposterous. Absolutely preposterous. But Ace was definitely in his element. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I gave it 3 1/4 star. And then the final match of the pre-show was Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta defeating the Grizzled Young Veterans. This was a blast. I thought this was very good. Great exhibition of tag team wrestling from both guys, right? Just lots of great tag team double team moves. The JYV in control until Garcia shoves James Drake off the top rope, and then Drake was wedged between the steps for a drop kick, which was, effectively killed him for the rest of the match, which allowed then the Death Riders to double team Zach Gibson. Garcia, clipped him, took out his knee, and then Yuta hit a Busaiku knee for the win. Just tremendous stuff. Look, I like this so much. It's a 3 3/4 star match for me. And I was like, wow, this is the pre-show. Let's go. Now we're building to something. This is awesome. I was so stoked. And it's one of these matches where, again, I'm like, oh yeah, the JYV are kind of employed by AEW, but also not. And this, I believe, is the second appearance that they've had on a Ring of Honor pay-per-view. The second in a row is what I'm trying to say. I think, right? And you could prove me wrong, folks, but I think the last time they were on TKverse television, or maybe they were on a Collision or something. I think it was, no, I think I might be mistaken. They might have been on a collision previously. And both times I remember having the reaction where they're like, these guys are so much better than when Tony Khan was introducing them to, AEW. They were showing up on AEW and they were having these humdrum, ho-hum matches. And then they disappeared for a while. Then they became regulars in Deadlock Pro. And now they've been showing back up in AEW and they have like a fire. It's a completely different team than when they had come in after being released or not renewed by WWE. I'm like, okay, like just add them on full time. These guys, there's something going on here. They're into it. They're very, very good. And I thought they were, they were quite good in Deadlock Pro, but they've been particularly good on these TV matches. So good for them. And hopefully, look, more of these guys, I will take any day of the week. So that leads us to the main card. We have Jon Moxley, who was on commentary, came in on commentary during the Death Rider tag team match that we just talked about. And Mox stuck around for a couple of matches, so he was here for a little while, including for the opener, which was the tournament final of the Ring of Honor Women's Pure Title Championship. That doesn't make sense, Warren. Deonna Purrazzo defeated Billie Starkz to win the inaugural title. I thought this was pretty good, actually. Thought this was good, super solid. You can tell that Deonna was completely in her element. That was. I think this was the whole story here. Billie was forced early on to use one of her rope breaks. They made a big deal out of it when Deonna used her first rope break. Commentary mentioned, I think it was Caprice Coleman who said that Riccaboni, this is the first rope break that Deonna Purrazzo has ever used in any pure match of all time ever. And it's like, whoa, and yeah, woo. And I thought Mox was doing a good job, hyping these women up. I think some people had some issues with how Mox was sounding and what he was saying. They thought he was a little rambling. He was looking for his words in a couple of occasions. I don't think he was as slick as he sometimes is. Maybe it was just a question of chemistry of working with Riccaboni and Caprice, whereas some of the more memorable times that Mox has been on commentary, JR was around and Excalibur and people that he's been hanging around maybe longer, knows better, could be a lot of things. But yeah, look, Starks here had to use a lot of outside forces. She had to use the steps. She had to do like her senton off of the she had to do her senton off the apron to sort of even the playing field. She couldn't. I think the story they were trying to tell here is that Billie Starkz wasn't adept enough to be to beat a true pure style wrestler in a wrestling ring. She had to use devices and whatnot. Starks hits a swan dive towards the end, but Purrazzo rolls it up into a crucifix and transitions into a double armbar. And she starts the Venus de Milo is what she calls it. And then she starts giving Billie knee strikes to her head. And Billie has no more rope breaks at this point, so she's got no choice. She just got knocked loopy with knees to the head while both arms are completely trapped. She just gave up. And Deonna Purrazzo is your winner, which is a good choice. I think she makes a lot of sense in this circumstance. Plus, they'll give Deonna something to do who has been inactive for a long, long time. So good for her. I would give this 3.5 stars, right? Yeah, 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it. I thought this was solid. I thought it was good work and was very good work by Billie Starkz. Lee Moriarty defeated Nigel McGuinness in a 30-minute Iron Man match that ended in sudden death overtime. This was fantastic. This is absolutely one of the two best matches of the night. I think it's kind of bar none. It's really funny because Mox is on commentary to start this one off. And he's And he's talking about tape trading throughout this match. Like he's talking about how there's certain matches, you needed to go around. You had to know a guy who knew a guy if you want to see certain matches. And it's one of the holy grails that we had, or something like that, was a tape, was the tape of a match between Nigel McGuinness and Johnny Saint. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, we are like, and I'm like, we're completely nerding out here on this pay-per-view, on this show, on commentary, live. And the only reason John couldn't get to the bottom of his thought here, because I think he was leading to something, is because there was like a pinfall attempt or whatever. And that's the only thing that kept Mox from not finishing whatever he had going in regards to a Nigel McGuinness tape, with fighting while he was fighting Johnny Saint. So, but look, to the match itself, look, I thought this was tremendous. Legitimately a great grappling match of wrestling and counter wrestling, mat wrestling, and I thought it was done extremely well. They really did take the time with this whole 30 minutes to really build to a dramatic climax. I was surprised at how much this didn't feel like I didn't feel the 30 minutes in it, right? And, Nigel is working Moriarty's arm, right? The shoulder, the arm, that's what he's going for. And he is twisting it. He is pulling at it. He's really stretching the hell out of the arm. And Moriarty is doing a fantastic job at selling the arm. I think at some point, commentary says, that arm is probably just hanging by, a thread or whatever, by some ligaments. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like the way he was selling it was, you were like, no, it's just going to fall off at some point. It was remarkable. And the thing that I really liked about it is that Moriarty was in charge in this match, and he was going for it and was in control. He was winning as far as pins go. He was absolutely in control. And we're getting towards like the we're getting around 5 minutes remaining type of thing, right? And Moriarty is leading like 3-1 at this point, right? Nigel had tapped out of a Border City stretch like really early on, like within the first 3 minutes or so, 4 minutes. And he had tapped out immediately, right? And then commentary puts over the fact that was a strategic tap out so that he wouldn't have to endure being in that for too long, so that he could stay fresh for the rest of the match. And I'm like, you see, that's fucking great. See, this is what we're missing in fucking pro wrestling in 2025. I don't need more candy canes wrapped in barbed wire. What I need more is this, like, stories being told in a match, things that make sense, things that you're like, aha, okay, we're having like a veteran, a man who has been up and down this road multiple times, who is a figure in Ring of Honor history to be a master at this type of, chess game. And they use the chess analogy multiple times in this match, but they're like putting this over. They're like, okay, this is a great story beat. So that was Lee's first, that was his first point. His second point comes when he rolls up Nigel, gets a flash pin. Nigel fights back. He gets the London Dungeon on. And then shortly thereafter, he tries it again on Moriarty. And Moriarty then rolls Nigel up for a pinfall, avoiding the dungeon on that attempt. So we're at 3-1 for Moriarty. And I'm noticing this like at 5 minutes to go. And I'm like, okay, we have the potential here to do something really cool. We have the potential to do something really, really cool. We have the potential here to truly like give Lee Moriarty a hell of a boost, where he gets into cruise control at some point and is just staving off attacks from Nigel. And Lee wins a decisive win over Nigel McGuinness. Not something where it's like it's, you know what I mean? Like a 3-1 victory. And the rest of the match is Lee Moriarty dazzling us with his counter wrestling, like outsmarting one of the greatest to ever do it, the technical wrestling stuff. Nigel McGuinness, right, when he was in his prime, practically untouchable. Mox was putting it over big time on top of that. Like, and then you have Lee Moriarty, who's just outsmarting him at every given moment. And I'm like, we have the opportunity to do something really cool. Look, if you want to give Nigel another pin, go right ahead. Add just a little flair, a little drama. But man, when Lee was on his back doing the Antonio Inoki stuff that commentary had pointed out, I was like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is cool. Like Lee is just going to he's going to roll around on his back and he's going to stave off, using his legs, of keeping Nigel from getting into a grappling position, getting any leverage on him. But no, we had to go down the exact route that every fucking kind of this type of situation always seems to call for, where it's like, no, now we're going to go for a series of flash pins and flash submissions. And then we're going to have outside interference on top of that on a match, which the entire drama stayed completely away from any nonsense. There was this one moment where Shane Taylor steps between Nigel and Lee when they're on the floor. And, the distraction of Shane Taylor allows Moriarty to get the upper hand on Nigel. I was like, okay, we don't really need this, but all right. But then the straight right from Shane Taylor, knocking out Nigel, allowing Lee to get the last pin to get to a draw. Because Nigel, maybe I should walk us through it here. In the final 2 minutes, this is what happens. This is all that happens within the last 2 minutes, okay? Nigel reverses out of a Border City stretch into a pin. So he gets an extra point. We're at 3-2. Then Nigel gets another pin after a collision. He gets another point. Now I know also at this point, Moriarty's starting to panic. He's lost his cool, okay? So I understand what's going on. Again, I understand the story that they're telling here at this point. I get it. I understand it. I don't like it, but I understand it. Lee's losing his cool, so that's creating all of these opportunities for Nigel to get all these flash pins. Because after they tie it up 3-3, Nigel rolls up Lee, who's if I remember correctly, he's arguing with Shane Taylor on the floor. And he's telling Shane Taylor to fucking cool down. And Nigel rolls him up to take the lead 4-3. But then Nigel, in the position that he's in, allows Shane Taylor to knock him out. And Lee immediately gets on him to tie the score at 4-4, right at double zeros. And the referee is counting just a little faster to make sure that he fits into those last few seconds there. It was a photo finish, folks, let me tell you. And I'm like, groan. I'm like, this kind of sucks. And now we're going to go to overtime, right? I'm like, of course we're going to go to overtime. And Moriarty gets on the mic and he's like, hey, let's do overtime. Are we doing overtime? And then the referee okays it and then we do it. And I'm like, why isn't this just like a rule now? Just make it a rule. Who gives, there's always this shit about, let's do overtime. And then it gets the crowd, it's supposed to get the crowd into it. Anyway. Regardless, that's not even my main issue. And then the overtime is all it is flash pin attempts, roll-ups, cradles, schoolboys, jackknife pins. That's all it is. That's all it is for like an extra, minute 30 or 2 minutes, however long it was. And I'm like, oh, really? This is how we're going to end it? Like it's so extremely unsatisfying because it completely removed me from the really cool story that they were telling into the match. This overtime didn't feel like it jived with the rest of the show, the rest of the match. Excuse me. where it really was counter wrestling and trying to slip the other guy into a move and that he just can't get out of or that he's stuck in. Why not just go for submissions? We completely abandoned Moriarty's arm at this point. Why didn't Nigel work on the arm more? Why didn't he go for the arm? It was just like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And I swear, folks, like it took me out of the match. Like the finish and the overtime, it kind of deflated the whole thing for me, because we truly had a Lee Moriarty who was shining at every move that he was doing. He was showing stuff that a lot of us who followed him in his career on the indies saw, and that had, and we were all, while he was on the indies, we were all going, why isn't this kid signed yet? He is tremendous. He's going to be a star, right? And he's been in AEW for a while, or in the TK verse, right? Hasn't quite lived up to that potential yet. It's all a question of opportunities, if you ask me. And he had this opportunity here to come across like a stud, like a true up and coming star with a spectacular performance against one of the all-time greats, right? But we had to, I don't know, we had to story it up. We had to make it like the tropey wrestling finish where the babyface, because Lee's supposed to be a heel, but he doesn't seem to be enjoying his association with Shane Taylor Productions anymore, and there's some tension there. He's always arguing with Taylor and whatnot, so it is what it is. But, we were supposed to get behind the babyface here, which is Nigel, but Lee was so great. And I sincerely think we missed an opportunity for a truly bold decision to have Lee go up over Nigel in a dominant fashion. And I'm not just sitting here being deflated because my little bit of fantasy booking that I had created in my brain as I'm watching the match didn't come to fruition. I think my idea is better. I think my idea is better than whatever they did, but I'm not poo-pooing it because they didn't do my idea. I'm poo-pooing it because it's tropey, because I've seen this it feels like thousands of times before, and I'm like, oh, of course we're doing the Flash comeback. Now again, I'm not dumb. I understand the story that they were telling, and it's that Lee got rattled. I understand the story, but the story would have been so much better if it had been Lee kept his fucking cool and Nigel started making mistakes. And the one thing that really annoyed me towards the end, when Nigel was still was 2 points behind, Nigel showed no sense of urgency. You had Mox on commentary going, come on, Nigel, you got to go, tear his head off. It's like Mox is like, we need some grit here. But these whole sequences at the end with Nigel, no sense of urgency from old McGinnis here. No feeling of, oh Christ, I've only got like 3 minutes left. Because don't forget, Nigel came up 3 points within 2 minutes, but there was no sense of urgency. I also understand, again, I'm not a dummy. I understand that Nigel, he's typically a cool, calm, collected character. He's a thinking man's wrestler. I understand that. But I think that even being a thinking man's wrestler, you can have a little snap, a little urgency, a little desperation develop in what you're doing. And that would have sold me a lot more on the finish that we got. Because it just felt like it was Nigel doing business as usual and Lee Moriarty was just coming undone, which I really didn't like because Lee was in control. Lee was as cool, calm, and collected for the vast majority of the match as Nigel was. Look, that's the story they told. We got to live with it. I think my idea would have been better, but this is what we got. So instead of this being maybe a 4.5 star match, a 4 3/4 star match, maybe. I'm ambivalent. I'm somewhere between a 4 and the 3 3/4. I'm like, I don't even know if I think I'm going to give it a 4 because it really was great. I think the wrestling truly was great in this, but it could have been so much better. Like it's an unenthusiastic 4 stars that I'm giving this match because it could have been so much more emotional. It could have been so much more like I feel like this is a missed opportunity. What we got was tremendous, great wrestling, and a truly excellent showing from Lee Moriarty. But it came close, but it ultimately came up short of being a breakout moment for Lee Moriarty. Those are my thoughts on this. Otherwise, super duper match, which you should, I believe, nonetheless, go out of your way to see. I think this is a recommended match. It was really, really good. But man, I was really disappointed with the finish. I was super disappointed with the finish. Red Velvet defeated Mercedes Moné to become the Ring of Honor Women's World Television Champion. Just completely beating the odds. I like it. I'm completely into it. Look, this is the match of the night. This is the best match that this show had. It was so much fun. And look, I knew that we were going to get a good match because the Dynamite match that they had, it turns out I was really high on it. I knew I felt like I was going to be one of the higher than a lot of people on the match that they had to do the unification of the titles, right? I figured that I would be on the high side of it, right? But it turns out that a lot of people really, really didn't quite care for the match or didn't like it quite as much as I did. I thought it was tremendous because it had so much fire. There was so much dislike and animosity, right? When Red Velvet came to the ring on Dynamite, she just beeline for Mercedes and got right up into her face. I think she pie-faced her, and it was it's like they weren't waiting for the pleasantries. They weren't waiting for the ceremony to. No. These two women were ready to go, and I was rubbing my hands together. I was like, I hope they bring that same vibe here, and they did. They really did. There's this great chemistry that exists between Velvet and Moné that I kind of regret that we're not going to see more of because Red Velvet's been relegated to Ring of Honor. There's really something super fun between these two here, and they work super well off of each other. And this match was really hard hitting with some tremendous moves, big top rope moves. And Red Velvet doing shit that I don't even know exactly how to explain. Hang on, let me pull out my notes here. I think I tried to write down what she was doing. Okay, here. No, that's not it. That's not the match. No, that's not the match either. I'm all over the place. Yeah, she's doing she does these springboard avalanche flips from the top rope where it's just they're spinning into the air and Mercedes is falling flat on her back. And I'm like, holy fuck, this rules. This was really, really good and had intensity. It had great pace. And the finish, this is what I wrote here. Huge avalanche code red type from a tombstone position. I can't even get it. I'm like, I'm trying to write down stuff and I'm like, I can't put sentences together. I'm like, huge avalanche code red type from tombstone position on turnbuckle. That's what I'm writing. It was innovative, creative, stuff that we don't see often. Red Velvet, passionate, fiery. Mercedes doing what she does best. Look, Mercedes is a great pro wrestler. And if it's you should be able to have a good to great match with a woman like Mercedes Moné because she will general through the match, right? If Red Velvet is able to take this opportunity and create what she did in this match, I think there's legitimate cause for people to take a step back and now watch Red Velvet's career more closely. Maybe it's time to get Red Velvet out of Ring of Honor, away from the dregs, and start putting her back on Collision and Dynamite, and have her sort of stack up against some of the top women in the women's division of AEW and see how she fares moving forward. Or were these two matches just Mercedes Moné flukes? Which is possible because it's fucking Mercedes Moné. But if she turns around, she being Red Velvet, and then she enters a program with Layla Gray, well, I mean, we're not helping her cause here. We're not helping her improve. Red Velvet, it felt like she had something to prove. It felt like she knew all eyes were on her and that people had discounted her already. I had. Like, I was looking forward to this match, but I was like, there's no way she's winning. There's no way she's getting the accolade here, and she did. Maybe it's time. Maybe she'll be the one to finally dethrone Athena, and I'd be okay with that. At this point, I want to see Athena and Red Velvet. I am more into Red Velvet's upcoming matches than I have ever been in the history of her career. And I saw her, do a wine tasting summit with Jade Cargill and Brandy Rhodes. And to me, that was the highlight of the Red Velvet experience in AEW. So yeah, look, this was tremendous. It was tremendous. And for me, it's the match of the night. I gave it 4.25 stars. I think it was great. I thought it was a legitimate, great match that everyone should watch. Punchy, fiery. How long was this match? Hang on a second, because it didn't people will say it didn't overstay its welcome. I thought it was perfectly timed for everything they had to do. 13 minutes 44 according to Cage Match. Perfect. And the women occupied that space with just a great in-ring story. I love this match. Now, Cage Match is giving it a 9 out of 10. I'm not going to quibble over quarter stars, okay? I think it's a little high. I think it might be a little bit on the high side. That being said, it was tremendous, and it's a recommended match as well. These were two back-to-back great matches, and I was like, oh fuck yeah, okay. Now we're getting into the Ring of Honor pay-per-view vibe. Now I'm excited. Now I can't wait for the rest. Well, Sammy Guevara and Beast Mortos defeated Dynamite Kid, Tommy Billington, and Adam Priest to win the vacant Ring of Honor World Championship titles after Rush suddenly injured his knee. Oh, and his brother. Wow. My goodness. Just so sudden. I don't know. Who could have seen this coming? Yeah, I thought I didn't think much about this match. I thought it was, I was annoyed by this match. This is what I wrote. Do you want to read I'll read you my notes verbatim, okay? At least this one had a few more coherent sentences than, on the top rope, he's doing flips, turnbuckle and tombstone. For some reason, I'm annoyed by this match. Probably because how much they played up liking Beast Mortos over Sammy Guevara, and the crowd, because of that, didn't get behind the real baby faces, and that went bad. Was bad. My handwriting stinks. Yeah. I was super annoyed with this match. And I'm super, look, I can't stand Sammy Guevara, okay? And this is a personal thing. I can't stand Sammy Guevara, not even in a he's a good heel type of situation. No, go away, Sammy Guevara. Anyway, I can't stand him. At least he's in a heel spot where I can justify fully with everyone being unable to stand him. At least they're not trying to make him a babyface again. Like, he's naturally unlikable, okay? So kudos to this creative here instead of, trying to make something that isn't there. But I legitimately mean this. I don't think this was necessarily planned where, the crowd naturally dislikes Sammy Guevara, but everyone likes Beast Mortos. I'm sorry to say, like, he's supposed to be a heel, but everyone loves Beast Mortos. So they're doing the thing. Well, you've probably watched the pay-per-view, but they're doing the thing where, one guy stands in front of the audience and extends his arms. And if it's, if it's the babyface cheers. And if it's the heel boos, right? But they do that with Sammy Guevara and Beast Mortos, who are on the same team, to establish, so Sammy goes like this and people go boo. And then Beast Mortos does it and they go yay. And they do this like 4 or 5 times. And I'm like, this is dumb. This is the heel team. Don't ask people to cheer for Mortos. Because in the meantime, you've got Billington and Priest. And, as much as I fucking love this team, they're not exactly the epitomes of charisma themselves, right? And they got practically no reaction when they came out. So you're completely burying the baby faces on this one, right? And they do this a few times in the match. And Sammy Guevara is trying to, he's playing up the crowd a lot to get tons of heat. And the match turns out to be nothing. The match turns out to be a big old zilch. Again, something that annoys me because I was excited to see Billington and Priest go at it again because I love both of these wrestlers and I think it's a really intriguing pairing. It's really intriguing to put these two guys in a tag team and I want to see them fucking fuck shit up because that's what they do. But this was essentially just like a heat segment for Sammy Guevara, and I think the antics that he and Beast Mortos did completely removed all the heat off of the actual baby faces in the match because no one cared. The audience ended up not caring, but there was nothing to care about. This match was nothing. 2 3/4 stars from me, and I was super duper annoyed. Now I can understand since Beast Mortos and Sammy Guevara were pulling double duty on this show. I can understand that. Maybe in this match, they were like, well, we're not going to go too hard because we're going to be like in the semi-main event, right? I can appreciate that. What I have trouble not appreciating, though, is having Sammy Guevara and Beast Mortos pull double duty. Like I don't think Ring of Honor is that hard up, or the TK verse, I don't think is all that hard up for bodies to put on a wrestling show. I from what I understand, the roster is fairly large. The amount of wrestlers accessible to Tony Khan to put on either of his shows is rather large. I think it was fine. It would have been fine if another tag team had won the tag titles or if 2 other guys had been in the main event. Anyway, this was not a good sign. Coming out of 2 really exciting matches, I was really let down here. Eddie Kingston defeated Josh Woods. This was a good little match. I gave it 3 stars. It's a gentleman's 3 type of situation. Josh Woods is working the arms. Eddie does some superplexes. Does a superplex, I should say. Woods does a chaos theory and DDT for Eddie to win. I think he might. Does this mean that he's retiring the Hurricane, the spinning back fist, and that he's transitioning to a DDT? I don't know. He calls out Samoa Joe here, again, it wasn't Eddie's greatest performance. I don't know how Eddie and Joe are gonna look like on Dynamite this week. I don't know what it's gonna look like. There's no denying that live audiences love Eddie Kingston, and there's a lot to love when it comes to Eddie Kingston. But Eddie was already touch and go as far as his in-ring performances go when he was healthy. Now that he's come back from a pretty big injury and he seems to be a lot more limited, I don't know what I don't know what Eddie Kingston moving forward is going to look like. I think he's got like there was no reason for him to go overboard in a throwaway match against Josh Woods, right? Where you're just like, you want to talk about a match that was just thrown together on this fucking card. Here you go, right? And he being Eddie is probably going to dial it up a couple of notches because it's Samoa Joe on the flagship show of the company. One would assume he'll crank it up, but do we have any guarantees of that? No, we don't. To me, like, I haven't seen enough Eddie doing single stuff right now to really like get a complete view on how he is now in a post-injury world. We'll just see. Shane Taylor Promotions defeated the Sky Flight to retain the ROH World 6-Man Tag Team Championship. This was okay. It's like, I don't know. Darius Martin is babyface in peril for most of the match, and I think the more that this is moving forward, Darius Martin has to move away from Dante Martin has to move away from Darius Martin. He has to move away from Darius. Dante has still a lot of upside. He's extremely athletic. I think, and his brother seems to be slipping. I don't know. I don't even think like Scorpio Sky did a ton in this match either. Like Darius ate most of the shit. Big hot tag to Dante, and every live wrestling crowd loves to watch Dante Martin. But Dante has a great sequence of dives and springboards in this match. And then the seconds attack each other, like Layla Gray and Trisha Dora attack each other. And then Anthony Ogogo and Christopher Daniels. I forget that Anthony Ogogo is part of Shane Taylor Productions. Anyway, Shane Taylor straight rights Darius and Carly Bravo rolls him up for the win. And just a bang average 2 3/4 star, nothing to it match. I don't know what to tell you. Ricochet defeated Dalton Castle to retain the AEW National Championship on his very first defense. I don't have many notes here. I gave it 3 1/4 star. I think both guys worked really hard. Dalton played the hits, did his thing with the boys and whatnot, and Ricochet looked good, but just uninspired work that just didn't get to another level. It's fine. It's uninspired work, but it's good. It's good enough. It's good enough to be like 3 1/4 star, but I'm not. We'll never think of this again. Type of thing. It's like we will never remember this. The finish wasn't bad. Where Dalton Castle is starting to suplex Ricochet all over the place. On the apron, on the floor, in the ring. But Spirit Gun, and Ricochet gets the win. I've got nothing. I've got nothing. It's just a competently done, entertaining match. That's it. We will never speak of again. Bandito retained the Ring of Honor World Championship in a survival of the fittest match against Blake Christian, Sammy Guevara, Beast Mortos, Hechicero, and Commander. And this was a big old mess. and not in the fun kind, like in the annoying kind, the annoying type of mess. I thought this was going to be like the entertaining type of mess that you get like in Lucha Libre, especially with the guys that were in here. Commander, Bandito, Beast Mortos, Blake Christian, Hechicero. Like these are all high level, excellent, like high flyers, and 4 out of those 5 are actual luchadors. So I was like, this, and Blake Christian has wrestled these types of people all over the world. It's fine. It's like, yeah, let's go. Like, let's have ourselves a good old lucha party match. But no, instead, we get Sammy Guevara doing his heat gimmick again. The same thing he was doing earlier on in the tag team tournament. He starts doing that again with Hechicero, with Beast Mortos. And I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, I understand, Sammy, you're happy to be back on, pay-per-view and doing relevant things, I understand you're happy. Maximize the time that you have on television, etc., etc. You know, he calls himself everyone's favorite pillar. He understands. He knows what's going on. But I thought that was too much. It distracts. It takes away. It's dumb. It's really dumb. Hechicero, Beast Mortos, him, they're all supposed to be heels. It's completely throwing off the psychology. He did it in the tag team match, and he's doing it here again. Anyway, you know, the usual things that annoy me with these multi-man matches happened, you know, and particularly one where like someone gets, you know, like Bandito, who again is the world champion. He gets laid out, and not by, you know, nefarious, like disgusting means, like, you know, eating an ice pick to the eye or something like that. I might be going a little hard here, but you know, like getting like a big chair shot or whatever. He just like gets normally laid out, and then he's out of the match at the start, like for what feels like 60 hours. I'm like, okay, Bandito's dead. Bandito is officially dead. What are we doing here? And then he and Commander try to do like convoluted moves. They're trying to do like a cool lucha things, but it's not working for whatever reason, right? The thing where I guess Commander was supposed to like do like a tornado Hurricane Rana spot, but instead climb up onto Bandito's shoulders. But that was it was a lot awkward. And then on the shoulders, Bandito comes out and Commander's supposed, I guess, to fly off of Bandito's shoulders to everyone on the floor. But something happened. There was a miscue and ended up, you know, Commander just ended up falling to the floor. Like it was a mess early on. And, you know, I think it's the kind of thing that it was really hard to come back from. I thought Blake Christian was the MVP of this match. I thought he was phenomenal. I thought he was extremely good in this one here. His shit was landing. Everything he did made sense. You know, Blake Christian's another guy that sometimes overshoots what he tries to do, right? But you know, I think he's refined his offense to be like, okay, the stuff that hits like 50-50, I'm just going to push that away. Like when he does his moonsault into the slop drop, right? The acai moonsault to the slop drop. Or what is it, a dive? He dives to the floor, and then instead of landing on the guy, he grabs him in a slop drop, and you know, in a reverse face lock, and then slop drops him. I'm kind of like, okay, sure. You know, whenever that happens, it works like 50% of the time. He's sort of moved away from that. He's focusing a lot more on things that he's really good at. That he knows he's able to nail. And I think he's benefited from that. I think Blake Christian is one of these guys that's benefited tremendously from being in Ring of Honor. I think there's something more there than there has been for a long time in his career. I think he's picked up a lot of confidence and whatnot. You know, the vanilla baby stuff is, you know, it borders, it's like that fine line between hateable and outright cringe, you know? And it's just like at that spot where it could fall into just being outright cringe and not working anymore, but you know, it suits him for now. Anyway, this ends with Hechicero and Bandito going at it, and this was the least inspired encounter that we've had between the two this year, and they've fought each other a couple of times. In some great matches, some great encounters, and this was absolutely the least inspired. Look, I'm going to give this, what did I give this? I lost my page. Yeah, a 3.25 star, because I thought there was a lot of work. I thought guys like Blake Christian worked really hard in this. And you know what? Sammy Guevara got eliminated really easily. He got thrown out really, really easily without putting any effort. So whatever he was saving from the tag team match that he, you know, whatever he was saving, he didn't put it on display here. He just had an easy night at the office, essentially. Blake Christian absolutely shined in this match. There you go. As far as that match goes. Then we get a backstage segment with Mercedes Moné getting confronted by Layla Gray. And this is all going to end up being settled in a TBS title match on Collision between the two. By the time you're listening to this, the match has probably aired. Not only has it probably been aired, it has been aired, unquestionably. There's no way you're watching this before that show has been aired. I know. I just know. I'm prescient. But you can tell that Mercedes Moné is upset. She's hyperventilating. She's not enjoying the fact that she lost a title. Maybe the downfall of Mercedes Moné has happened and she's going to start dropping titles right and left. And she's going to be like, she's going to be shook and insecure and so on and so forth. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to seeing how this plays out. I don't think she's dropping the TBS title to Layla Gray. I don't think. But then again, I didn't think Red Velvet was going to win her title back on this show. So goes to show you what the fuck I know. And finally, we had the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship in the main event. Athena successfully retained once again against Persephone. Now, earlier this week on stream, I previewed tonight the Ring of Honor Final Battle proceedings. And when I got into this match, I was like, look, when I got to previewing this match, I said, the best thing that could happen in this match, and I'm paraphrasing, right? But this is essentially what I said. The best thing that could happen in this match is if it's a sub 20-minute match, maybe around like the 15-minute mark, where everyone gets their shit in and it looks good and it doesn't turn into another 20 plus Athena epic where there's a lot of dead space and you know, you're supposed to think that it's this great match because of its length and would probably help Persephone at the same time, you know, get her power stuff in and whatnot. And I was dreading that it would be a 20 plus minute Athena epic. And that's exactly what we got. A 20 plus minute epic Athena match, you know, and it's exactly how I had pictured it in my head. It's exactly how I thought it was going to go down, only with more fucking facial expressions. And that I was a little taken aback by. The amount of near pinfalls with both Persephone and Athena doing, you know, soy faces and, you know, gritting their teeth and biting down on their fingers when the other person would kick out of a pin attempt. I could not believe at the frequency this was happening. I was mortified. Truly. I was like, what are they doing? Stop it. Stop. And I was shocked at how much Persephone was doing this. Was she told, like, this is what you have to do on American television? Because she's not this bad in Arena Mexico. Trust me. In Arena Mexico, you don't, like, it's just, you move, you someone kicks out, you get back on it, and you just keep pushing and pushing, and at some point you go, you know, especially towards the end, you know, in lucha, then the luchadors start putting their hands on their heads, and they're like, what the fuck do I have to do to put this guy away, kind of thing. But it's usually in the final stretch of a match, not like throughout the whole entire fucking thing. I will say that Athena's worst instincts were less on display here. And I don't know if it's because she came out with the Demon Slayer cosplay and that made her happy, you know, where she didn't feel like she had to play around as much, but you know, she did do her little mid-match, you know, monologue and, you know, whatnot, but she wasn't as heavy-handed as she can be sometimes. And I appreciate that. But like, this near 30-minute match could have been an exciting 15-minute match. And I would have been completely okay with that. You know, it's the same arguments. It's the same argument I have with it's the same argument I have in regards to people who complain about the length of the Hollywood ending match at Revolution earlier this year. It's where people were like, it should have been longer. And I'm like, why should it have been longer? This was a perfect match. This is a match of the year. This is a match of the year that you just want. Why would you want it longer? It did everything it had to do, and it's a lot of time, and then some. It was a perfectly paced, executed match. But we have this perception, oftentimes in pro wrestling, that longer means better. That if that a long match is synonymous with a big time quality match, and that is more often than not actually not the case. And I kind of feel like that this all is still leftovers from the late 2010 era of New Japan Pro Wrestling, where every main event in New Japan was a 35 minute plus affair, where people then were like, oh, Jesus Christ, not another 35-minute Jay White main event, right? Kind of thing. Because we couldn't have under 35 minutes. Now, is this an idea, and you can apply this same logic to Ring of Honor. Is this an idea where you want to give the impression to the audience that they got their money's worth because they got a big, long, extended main event? Maybe. But then it's up to the wrestlers to really occupy that space. And while the match was good, I can't say that this was a bad match, and I will not say this was a bad match because these are two good wrestlers. I think that the length did them a disservice, and I think that they didn't wrestle to that variable, or it's not a variable at that point, to that criteria that they had established, that it was going to go over 25 minutes, that it was going to go nearly 30. I think the pacing here was completely off when they did do moves. Like, here's the thing, big physical moves, tremendous stuff, both women shining, especially Persephone getting opportunities to show off how strong of a woman she is, how strong of a wrestler she is. That was fantastic. But we had to drag things out. You could feel like we were going for the big epic. And I don't think that the match, if you're doing the epic, the final gear that you clutch into has to raise to levels where you're like, this, all right, I get it. This is where we were going. But we never got to that point. And there's drama to all of it all. They're transitioning out of a Razor's Edge attempt by Persephone, and they're into a leg submission. Well, the Koji clutch, essentially, right? And that ruled. That was actually a great transition. Like, there's some really good stuff here. Near falls and back and forth. The Koji clutch returns. Then Persephone's throwing Northern Light suplexes and a sack of shit. And she hits a big spear. Like that, there was a stretch there that was really, really exciting. And then she goes for the Razor's Edge. Athena is able to kick out of the move when she gets pinned. And then, of course, Persephone is doing soy faces to the camera. And then Athena does an incredible German suplex off of the turnbuckle. Persephone landed really high on her shoulder. It was a great bump. It was very, very gnarly. And then the O-face for the win. I'm like, oh, okay, we're done. Just as you're kind of feeling where, all right, we're building steam. We're going real hard. We're just going to go crazier and crazier. But no, it's just, all right, Athena wins again. It's okay. All right. It's like, and the thing is that, I'm sitting here kind of poo-pooing on this match, but I'm going to give it 3 3/4 stars because I thought it was strong. I thought it was a strong, well put together match, but I thought it was long and I got lost in it. And I feel like I could have given it, I could feel stronger about the match. I could have liked it more, but we had to do the 20-minute plus Athena epic, and it just didn't connect. Gotta tell you one thing though, Athena is looking really good these days. Like physically, tremendous. Like she's been going through, I've noticed it when she showed up on Dynamite and whatnot, for the for her title matches against Tony and then the tournament. I had pointed it out. I was like, okay, Athena is like she's going through a transformation right now. She's looking great. She looked even better here. Like, good for her. Like, she's really, really looking tremendous. There's a lot of positives here, but it's just like, I wish I could love Athena as much as other people do, but because I think she's a very good pro wrestler, right? And what she did here was a very good pro wrestling match. But people are thinking, like, they're calling this great. They're going, cuckoo crazy for it. They're saying it, but it's like, and yes, it was physical, but it wasn't. I can't call this a great match. Like 8.47 on Cage Match right now as I'm recording this. That, I think it's too high. It's a low 8, upper 7 out of 10 match. That's where it belongs, in my opinion. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that one of the things that would benefit from Athena in these types of circumstances is shorter matches. Just shorter, faster paced matches would be a huge benefit. You shave off half of this match and you've got yourself a great main event. I sincerely believe that. And the fucking soy faces that they do to the camera. Jesus Christ. I don't know if Persephone was told to do this, but it is, or if she's watching NXT, or if this was an audition to go on to NXT. But it was really, really annoying. Anyway, but nonetheless, a very good performance by both these ladies and a good, solid, very good main event. Nonetheless, like, it sounds like I hated it, but it's just like I see so many flaws that keep me from liking it more. That's what bothers me. That's why I'm like, yeah, but the fucking this and the fucking that and the length and the fucking faces and too long. They all eventually chip away. Imagine if they fixed all of that. Imagine with all that criticism, I still give it 3 3/4 star. So imagine if they had fixed all of that, how great of a match we would have had. There you have it. That's my Ring of Honor Final Battle 2025 review. A good show, a good show with 2 truly great matches on this card, and that you should seek out: Mercedes Moné versus Red Velvet, and the 30-minute Iron Man match between Lee Moriarty and Nigel McGuinness. And everything else, look, I don't think you'll be bored if you watch this match. I think there might be a section of the show where you're kind of like, okay, what's happening kind of thing. But nothing outrageously bad. Nothing like, to pull your hair out of your head. A good show, but an unremarkable show. Yeah. And that about does it for another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Shows. Thank you all so very much once again, especially for making it all the way to the end here. And hey, if you have made it all the way to the end, I think it's clear that you liked what you heard. So why don't you leave a like? Leave a like. It's really not that hard. Just go ahead and do it. Or a 5-star review or a 5-star rating. All of these things, we're not going to go through that again. But it's just a quick reminder. I will be back tomorrow. If you're listening to this on the Wednesday, on Thursday, whatever, right? I'll be back on Thursday, just like I always am. Back on Thursday. Can I say it one more time? Back on Thursday for the AEW Dynamite review and plus a live stream on Thursday evening. And then we will be back next week with the same rigmarole. So there you have it. Thank you all very much for joining me this week. Go watch some Randy Orton and get back to me. And I'll see you next time.